welcome to Political Paradigm live on Channels Television. I am Kayla Magwa. Today, we are having a State of the Nation conversation with an elder statesman who's made his mark in both the public and private sectors. This officer of the Order of the Federal Republic currently represents his home state of Kogi in the Governing Council of the Hydroelectric Power Producing Areas Development Commission. He's currently a member of the All Progressives Congress. Welcome to Political Paradigm, Mr. Salami.
Thank you very much for having me.
I want to be able to, because recently I saw you giving a lecture to deputy governors. I know you're trying not to stay in politics, but politics keeps pulling you back in. Let's talk about deputy governorship. Let's start from there, because that's the last lecture you gave. Yeah, the role of the deputy governor in Nigeria and the deputy governors you're looking at right now, are they living up to that role?
Well, the role prescribed for them in the Constitution is not very elaborate. They are just provided for. And what they do actually depends on the mood and the character of the governor himself, how he wants to utilize them. Some governors have been able to utilize them successfully to the extent that they even succeed them at the end of their tenure. In other words, they pay them for loyalty and for hard work. In other instances, they are treated like spare tires and only tolerated. So it is a very difficult situation, and there's no way you can force the marriage to stick. It depends on the governor's attitude to the whole idea of having a deputy. So it is not a very easy thing at all. Even at the federal level, you can imagine what happens between former President Obasanjo and his deputy, that time Atiku Abubakar. So it is not a very dicey situation.
I mean, deputizing is pretty complex, like you said earlier. But I want to talk about that lecture you gave. The lecture was titled The Renewed Hope Agenda. Well, at least that was the beginning part of the lecture. And I really wanted to bring up the idea that many people, when they hear renewed hope right now, you know, it comes with a lot of people upset. You know, when they think about the renewed hope agenda, they keep wondering, what hope? I don't feel very hopeful right now when I think about how much I have in my account. My purchasing power has reduced drastically. Even if I got an increase in my salary, I am technically poorer because of this floating of the Naira issue. So talk to us a little bit about the renewed hope agenda. I know that you are a member of the All Progressives Congress.
Well, the idea of the renewed hope agenda was a comprehensive approach to solving all the myriads of problems that was inherited from the immediate past government of General Buhari. Of course, there was a general economic downturn all over the world, and Nigeria was not excluded. So the idea of the new hope agenda was to resuscitate some of the wishes, some of the expectations, to heighten the hope of Nigerians, because once people have hope, they will be able to tolerate whatever inconveniences they go through, because they will think it is temporary. But if there's no hope, then it is almost impossible to do to be positive and to live a good life. So it was not a bad idea that the New Hope agenda was introduced, but it is the content of the New Hope agenda that some critics have validly talked about. For instance, validly, yes. For instance, the situation of anti-corruption in Nigeria is such that anybody would think that any New Hope agenda will bring corruption as a very, very top item on the agenda to be tackled and to be combated. aggressively, but it is not mentioned in the New Hope agenda. It can be implied that maybe, you know, as you go, you deal with it. But corruption is is of such a magnitude that really it deserves to be given its own pride of place. The second thing is insecurity. Today, a lot of Nigerians, especially those who are in the farms, where you know, agriculture is expected to boom, they can't even go to the farm because of fear of being kidnapped by the kidnappers and the bandits and what have you. And one would have thought that that security agenda should also have been an item, a very big item in the New Hope agenda. But again, it can only be implied. So these are some of the things that critics have talked about. But in any case, if you have any public policy, you must leave room for variations, to listen to the public, because the whole idea is to comfort the public. So the input of the public is always very important. So I believe that government should listen and see how they can incorporate these omissions in the New Hope agenda as we progress along.
That's interesting. You are a member of the All Progressives Congress, and you are critical of the government as well.
Not of the government, but of a program. Because I want the government to succeed. And if I want the government to succeed, then I must be factual and be fair, be constructive to them. So what I don't like about criticism is when you criticize and you don't offer alternatives. But when you criticize and you give alternatives, then I think it is a fair criticism.
So let's talk about some of the areas that you think need some, well, not just criticism, but alternative solutions, so to speak.
Thank you.
I mean, you have mentioned corruption and security, which everyone noted was not a part of the Renewed Hope agenda. It was implied, but it wasn't directly, you know, noted as something that we're going to be focusing on. Exactly. But then the economy, even that was stated in the agenda, is receiving blows left, right, and center. And as we mentioned earlier, the quality of life of the Nigerian has deteriorated, and then all these hopes that things are going to get better is going to get better. We don't know if it's going to. We're just basically twiddling our fingers. And where do you find fault with those economic policies, especially removal of fuel subsidy, floating of the naira, these tax reforms that are about to come on board? Where do you stand on all those ideas?
Well, I think all this shows that the administration has the boldness to come up with these programs. So for that, one could praise them. But however, as I said, in anything that is humane or that has to do with human beings, you must always give adequate listening ear, so that if there's need for, you must provide room for flexibility so that amendments can be made as the situation dictates. Because in economics, you know, you make assumptions, and some of these assumptions cannot always be perfectly achieved. So if part of your assumption is not being achieved, then you should make adjustments so that the substance is achieved, and the lack of proper assumption does not come round to become the downfall of the whole program. So you look at the big picture, and then if you look at the big picture, then you try to find a way to make sure that you remain focused, and the big picture you're looking at is attained. And you may have to sacrifice one or two minor things, but it is the big picture that should be your attraction.
So let's talk about some of those policies directly. Floating of the naira. You've said they were brave, but many people say yes, brave and important, but were they done properly? Floating of the naira, removal of fuel subsidy. Let's start with the floating of the naira.
Well, okay, the floating of the naira was not expected to come with the adverse effects that accompanied it. And some of these adverse effects up to now have not ceased, because the behavior of the naira, even the central bank governor, I think, has been trying to see what he can do to tackle inflation that accompanies it, and I'm not sure he has succeeded yet. But anyway, some of these programs may also need some time to stabilize, and maybe part of what we are going through is this instability initially.
Birthing pains.
So maybe with time, we hope we'll get it right.
Is that the
but
same?
We must watch it very carefully, because if we don't get it right properly, and we allow it to boomerang, it could, as I say, destroy the whole purpose of the reforms or of the agenda. So we must ensure that whatever is happening, for instance, there ought to be relief package, and this relief was actually promised, but they have been very, very slow in coming or in manifesting. And this is an area that the government needs to address very, very prominently. For instance, if you take the fuel subsidy, there's this idea of CNG vehicles conversion. It has been very, very slow. And if it has been done, especially for the commercial vehicles, which the public patronize a lot, then maybe the impact would have been much less than what we are feeling now. So I think government should put a lot of effort in trying to do a lot of the conversions of the public utility vehicles, particularly the buses, especially the long distance buses, if they can convert them so that the price of transportation, the cost of transportation can be reduced, because airfares has also gone up, and road transport, if it also remains up, then there's no relief for anybody anywhere. So I think this is why the area of relief needs to be addressed with urgency.
What do you think about the tax reform bills?
The
tax reform bills.
Well,
the controversial tax reform bills.
The tax reform bill, fortunately, some dialogue has just entered now, because the governors and the Speaker of the House of Reps and I believe the Senate as well have started rubbing minds together, and I believe this may help to come to an acceptable position, because all the controversies around it have been articulated, and fortunately the original idea that it must still go come what may, as with the meeting of the governors of the various states, as well as the members of the House of Reps and the Speaker and some senators and so on, I believe, and also with the tax team, the members of the committee that made the recommendation. I believe that I believe so much in dialogue, because dialogue is a way to solve any complex human problems. And I'm happy that finally dialogue has come into it. And all the initial fears one had reason to have disappeared with the magnitude of dialogue that I have seen going on now.
Since we're here, let's talk about a few of the major stories, trending topics, so to speak. Let's start off with the local government autonomy conversation?
Well, I think that is a very excellent move and again, another bold move by the administration of President Ahmed Tinubu, because even General Buhari tried to get this local government autonomy on. He sent a lot of executive orders, and they were more breached than obeyed. So I believe the approach of the Tinubu administration is probably more pragmatic. And even as it is now, there are still some people who believe that the Supreme Court ruling violates the Constitution. Although, fortunately, the members of the Senate have promised that they will make sure that they amend the Constitution to accept the pronouncement of the Supreme Court. So I believe that that is something that a lot of people are looking forward to. And even those who were initially opposed to it and spoken out, I think by the time they see the public opinion on it, some of them are beginning to relent gently. So I think there's a lot of hope in that, and if it is done, I think it will be very good, because we cannot have a local government that is not functional at all. And the governors made sure that they ganged up to make sure that there's really no activity at the local government level. But now that life is being blown into local government, I believe people will be able to see development at the grassroots. If you remember, during the time of General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida as president, there was this Directorate of Food and Road Infrastructure, they call them, and they made a lot of impact. And even that time, I remember there was a time local governments were just given 1 million naira, and we saw what they did with it in terms of rural roads and so on and so forth to the farmlands, and it really made a big impact in the life of the people. So I think this local government autonomy is a way of taking making life more comfortable for the people at the grassroots level.
And I'm going to tie your deputy governors to the local government autonomy question, and that's because, as many people know, security at state levels are actually in the hands of deputy governors constitutionally. At least the local management of security in the state levels. Am I correct, or am I wrong?
In a lot of places it is, but in other places
it's not. But it's supposed to be.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
what it's supposed to be, the deputy governors.
Exactly.
Now, with the insecurity that we're seeing in parts of the Northeast, you know, with this new terrorist group and these issues, how well do you think our states can handle these security situations? Because we've heard the military, we've heard the police, that conversation is ongoing. But these days, even with the military, even especially the army, even the Air Force, all of them, even the Navy, they keep saying, look, we are doing kinetic part. We're doing the kinetic part of this conversation. The non-kinetic part belongs to the state government, and the federal government has to be able to look into that as well. If you're not doing that, we're basically doing something that will come back. As long as there's poverty in these levels, as long as it will come back. What do you make of that conversation? And what can these states, you just spoke to their deputy governors recently, what can they be doing to ensure that the military efforts that we're putting into fighting insecurity is not a wasted effort?
Well, I think we must approach both issues. One, the underlying cause. And the underlying cause of insecurity is lack of jobs and poverty at the lower level. And when I say lack of jobs, I'm not talking of paid jobs. I'm talking of even those who are engaged in the farms, who cannot go to their farms. So you can see why it is being so difficult to tackle, because they have nothing doing. And then because they are available, then the insurgents or what have you can recruit them easily and keep them busy on negative things and so on. And not all of them would want to, but because many of them are not very, very exposed to even their religion, they are told that if they do certain things, it is going to earn them heaven, which is really not true. And in fact, it's the opposite. And if they believe in some of these things, they become negative, and especially if there's no alternative, and desperation can cause some of these things. So there's a lot of room for improvement in the non-kinetics approach. And some of the provisions that the federal and state governments have made for palliatives to reach the ordinary people, unfortunately, the system has not been such that they get to the people intended. They are hijacked and either resold in the market or what have you. So a lot of people are suggesting that maybe the best thing, instead of all these grains that are released for distribution for palliatives, maybe if they are taken to the market to dampen the price, because
to flood the market,
yes,
so the price can
then
go
the
down.
price will come down. That may be a more practical approach. So I believe government may need to look in that direction as well. But right now, the insurgents seem to be gaining more ground, and I must praise the military and the Air Force and all the branches of our security agencies for being up and doing. But they still need to be much more focused. They still need to do much more than they have achieved so far. I'm not blaming them at all. But of course, in order to support them for the achievement to be lasting, because we're talking of lasting impact, there's need for this non-kinetic approach to be done very quickly. And then if there's need for the federal government or even for the state government to come together to provide food or stuff, as I said, to the market, rather than to give them free.
To people.
Because trying to distribute them free, there's so much resistance. I mean, there's too much diversion that takes place. But perhaps if it is, if they are just made available and people can buy as they wish, then it will probably make life a little better for the people concerned.
I mean, I have so much I want to talk to you about. I want to go back to your state, Kogi State. You mentioned earlier that the issue of corruption wasn't directly referenced in the Renewed Hope agenda. I want to get your take on some of the things that we keep seeing in the news. Governors, after their tenure in office, having to face such corruption charges. You know, so your state is in the news for one of such stories. You know, you've been around. You've been here for quite a while. What do you make of that dynamic?
You see, the problem is some of the anti-graft agencies, they believe more in drama than in substance. I used to be a member of the ICPC,
yeah.
And I know that we made sure that we try to prevent corruption as much as possible. Prevention. Because we believe that the amount of resources spent on trying to look for what has been taken away is innocuous. And if we can prevent it in the first instance, it was very helpful. And we took a lot of preventive measures, which got commendation from the international community. And that was the time you noticed Nigeria was improving in the ranking of the anti-corruption index and so on. And some of them were due to what we were doing. And for instance, there were some embassies here in Abuja that were always people go forge documents and people want to leave the country illegally and so on and so forth. I was chairman of the body that looked after that. And I know that many of the embassies that time, particularly the United States, America, and the UK, India, and quite a number of, even South Africa, came to thank us for how we sanitize their embassies. And some of the people that even traveled were able to get them back because they traveled with forged documents and so on. So we got a lot of commendation. They even decided to assist us with capacity building, and that made it possible for us to send many of our staff abroad for further training and so on. So it was a win-win situation for us.
So the preventive measure, let's say at state levels.
Yes.
What kind of preventive measures should be in place to stop, that would stop a governor, for instance, from engaging in corrupt practices and having to face the dehumanization of his life and the insults to the office that he occupied and the people over whom he governed? You know, what kind of preventive measures should be?
You see, our problem in this country is the politicization of everything. If I'm a governor today, I must have opponents who don't like me as governor. So what I've done and what I've not done, they will accuse me of it. So a lot of false and fake accusations are published, especially in this era of social media. And sometimes you find a lot of stories that have no, just about a few weeks ago, the son of one of the former governors in Kaduna State was alleged to have accumulated a lot of foreign currencies and so on.
And narcotics.
And eventually, there was nothing like that. So this kind of thing, you know, makes us to be very careful when we are considering anything on anti-corruption.
I mean, let's not, just so that we don't lose that thought,
yes,
because it's a trending issue right now.
Exactly.
The female lawyer apologized, and, you know, the man, the son of the governor in question said, no, I think you should face the music, because we have to stop people from doing what you have done.
Exactly.
So what do you think? Should he forgive her, or should she face the music?
I think we did that. We experienced a lot of that when we were in ICPC. And what we always try to do was to make, because our law actually gives us the latitude that if somebody gives us false information, we could, you know, bring that person in for punishment. But we tried to be moderate in doing so that we don't discourage people from bringing information to us. And, but all the same, information that is brought needs to be scrutinized. And also the law in Nigeria does not give anti-graft agencies the power to convict anybody. No matter what you find,
so he shouldn't forgive her.
You must go to the court.
You think she should face the music?
It is only the court that can say, you know, you are freed. And after all, a lot of people have gone to court and have actually been found not culpable after corruption charges have been leveled against them by the anti-graft bodies. So I want to appeal to the anti-graft bodies to reduce the theatrics in the fight against corruption and let them be more serious, because other people are watching us. It is not just what we are doing to ourselves, but other people are over there. And I mean, there are anti-graft agencies in UK, in USA, and in so many other places. Even the present president of America, you know that he faced a lot of these things. But the way that we try to prematurely condemn people just on mere accusation in this country is not helpful. And it does not encourage those who have, you know, I mean, you can imagine if you have not done anything, and just because your enemies have decided to claim that you've done something wrong and so on and so forth. And I think media trial should not be encouraged, because I know what it can do to the anti-corruption war itself.
Let's talk a little bit more about something that you're involved in right now, which is Hyperdeck. What it's hydropower. Talk to us a bit about it. How much does it contribute to our electricity use in the country? And you're representing Kogi State there. What kind of progress have we seen? Let's say in the past, let's say in 2 years.
I was in the Pioneer Council, the last council. The new one has not been formed. We're the last council.
Okay.
And when we were there, what we tried to do was to go to the affected communities, because we are supposed to bring relief to people who suffer from floods due to electricity production and the release of water from dams and so on and so forth. So we go to the very people who are affected, went all around the 6 states affected, and we asked them, the people themselves, what are your priorities? They must have a lot of problems. We want them to prioritize their needs. So after this enumeration, we came together to put it together, the outcome. And then we took it back to them and say, when we came, this is what you said, because you have said this is what the direction we wanted to go. Then we got their buy-in. Then finally, we started the activities. In some places, we built houses for them so that when the flood is approaching, they can remove themselves from where they are to go and stay in those houses until the flood is over. And that way they will reduce their losses. They will ameliorate their losses. In some places, we decided to give them empowerment. For instance, we got about youths from all the affected communities and gave them training in the area that they have chosen. Some of them choose fashion, some of them choose fishing, some of them choose bakery, some of them choose shoemaking, and all kinds of skills, different skills. Then we liaise with the Nigerian Directorate of Employment to help us to give them adequate training. Now, having given them certificate that they have done that adequate training successfully, the last time they did, when we have left the Hyperdeck, was to give them what they call starter packs, because there's no point you are given training and then you are thrown on the streets. You are still no better than you were. So we gave them all the starter packs. So for instance, those who were going to catering, we gave them the various items they need, like the fridge and the various items that will give them the start. So we gave them the material, and then we want them not to go and sell them because to make sure that, because we want them to become not only employers but to employ more people and then stand on their feet and so on. And they were all very, very happy.
I want to talk to you a little bit. Let's go back to security.
Okay.
Because I remember years ago when we all had to pray because you were kidnapped.
2 times.
Twice. I don't want to talk about what kind of harrowing experience it was. If you want to, that's fine. I think one of the questions that I've always had, and this is for my curiosity, and I think for many people, was there a rescue or did you pay a ransom?
The first time, it was both.
You paid a ransom?
Part of the ransom was paid and balance was left, but fortunately the police rescued me.
Okay.
The second one, it was ransom payment throughout, because despite all that we did with the security agencies, they had no clue. I was taken to the top of a hill and kept there for almost 2 or 3 weeks. So it was not a very pleasant experience, and I have always said that even my worst enemies, I don't wish them to taste what I tasted. It's a very horrible thing, and those people, in fact, they were telling me during the time that it is because they didn't have jobs, they left university without any job for many years, that they decided to do what they were doing to me and so on. Even though I was not the direct cause, but You know, these are some of the sentiments that they expressed while they held me on. So I think it is very, very important that we try to, because as I said, the insecurity scare is such that many people cannot even go to their farms in the first instance.
I want to be able to get to how this happened. Were you driving? Did they come to the house? What happened?
Yes, they came and laid ambush for me.
Where? On the road?
No, on my way to the mosque. I was going to the mosque early in the morning.
Where?
In Kogi State, in Ogamnana, in Kogi State. Okay. I had a mosque just beside my house, and I did my ablution and was going to the mosque, and they seemed to have known that I followed that route.
You were walking?
I was walking, and then they came and parked. As soon as I walked past their car, they came out and forced me into the car and drove me away. And there was somebody, a security person who was going to walk, and he saw them carrying me away, and he just said, this is this person being driven away by these kidnappers. And they had it, so they stopped and shot him dead. And, well, okay, not dead, but immediately he was carried to where the bullet could be removed and so on. The people were so reluctant that if there's no police report, they were so afraid and so on and so forth until the man bled to death. And again, one of the lessons, and I remember when I addressed the press that time, I emphasized that police should see their duty as preserving life more than anything else. The fear of saying that we don't know, you know, they cannot, I mean, people cannot take action. Hospitals should take action to save life, regardless of whatever will happen later, because the person can be questioned when he's, when he has regained his health. But, you know, if you allow him to die, there's nothing you gain out of it. So this is what the unfortunate thing that a lot of people, even accident victims, sometimes they will insist that they must have police report before the hospital can treat them and all that. And this approach is very negative, and we should discourage it as much as possible, so that anybody, whatever should be done to save life, even if it is the life of the bandits, it is better still to save it, and maybe you can get some information from him about his colleagues and so on when he is well, than to let him just die hopelessly.
I'm sorry that you had to go through that.
Thank you very much.
I know. It's been a while, but it's still...
Very, 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 it's a very bad taste anytime one thinks about it.
So let's talk about the police. Your thoughts on state police?
I believe that we should try to improve the effectiveness of the police we have. And many times the police themselves are not doing enough to gain public confidence. And police, I mean, security is everybody's business. It's not the business of the security agents. But the security agents need to earn the confidence of the public so that the public can give them information, actionable information or intelligence. But unfortunately, the behavior of the police at times does not give room for that confidence, because a lot of people believe that when they give information to the police, they can go and sell the information to the assailants, and they can come after them later. And this has happened in some few cases. And then the idea of police setting up checkpoints just to collect tolls is another big embarrassment even to the police force
I want
itself.
to be able to get your thoughts on some of the fears that people have about state police, and we've heard people make these comments over the years. Oh, state police may be good on paper, but the truth is that the governors of these states
can misuse them.
Can misuse it. Do you agree with them?
I think the fear is palpable, and it needs to be, we have to be very, very careful, because a lot of things in this country will take one step forward and take 3 steps backwards. And I don't think we should rush into the state police. First of all, the resources for the state police, we should be able to be sure that the states have the resources. Because many of the states, although if you hear the amount that is being pumped into states through the federal allocation, you think it's a huge amount. But believe me sincerely, it's just like the minimum wage. If you are to compute the present minimum wage and the minimum wage at Shagari's time, you'll be very surprised that the minimum wage of Shagari's time has more value than the present 70,000 minimum wage.
Because of the dollar.
So the same in dollars. So say the same thing with allocation. The allocations that are going to the states now, if you are to convert them to dollars, and what they were getting before the reforms, you will find that they were getting even more than they are getting now. Only the quantum that makes people think they have a lot of money. So I don't know where they're going to find the money to support the police, because you need to equip the police. You need to provide barracks for them. You need to give them welfare. And even some of the hunters that they are now mobilizing to assist in the combat of some of these insurgents, they are not rewarding them adequately. So sometimes when they start, they perform very well. After a while, you find that they slack, because they are not given even the little token that they expect, not to talk of something commensurate.
I want to talk to you about governance in Nigeria. Okay. You were a teenager when we got our independence. Exactly. So you've been here. You've seen every single government of this country since independence. That is mind-boggling in itself. So you can look at from 1960.
Yes.
You were not a child, you were a teenager.
Yes, exactly. I was in
so
school.
You can look at from 1960, when we had our, till now. I don't know if it's possible to do a rundown of what it is that has been happening, but your thoughts on successive governance in Nigeria. Are we moving forward?
I think fortunately, we were fortunate at independence because we had patriots in governance, and they tried their maximum best to satisfy their people, and they were all people-oriented. When you talk of the Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe of this world, you talk of Chief Obafemi Awolowo of this world, you talk of Dr. Michael Opara, you talk of Samuel Ladoke Akintola, you talk of Ahmadu Bello Sadona of Sokoto, and you talk of the prime of all of them, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. They all had the interests of the nation above whatever personal interest. Let me give you an example. When Chief Obafemi Awolowo approached Azikiwe that they should form an alliance, Azikiwe was initially attracted to the idea that he would be the prime minister under the alliance and Chief Awolowo would be the minister of finance. But on second thoughts, being the nationalist that he was, he said it will look counterproductive. He is from the south, Chief Awolowo is from the south. If they form an alliance, it will be the south versus the north, and this will not be good for nation building, for the future of the country. Just because of that, he refused the attraction of being prime minister and accepted the less attractive option of becoming a civilian governor general. I mean, such a thing is very rare today. If you bring such an alternative to the current crop of politicians, they are looking at what is in there for me and not what is even in there for my people. This is completely absent today. And then when independence was to be achieved, Sir Ahmad Bello said the North was not ready because in terms of manpower, you know, a lot of our people were not yet educated and so on. So he felt that if there was independence at that stage, the North will be at disadvantage. And he didn't, I mean, he would have quickly rushed to take the power, but he said no, and it was delayed until the North was a little bit more ready. And then he brought a lot of crash programs to send some Northerners to overseas and even to local institutions to improve their capacity. So all those kind of considerations are missing today. And I remember very well that Tafawa Balewa, when the time to choose the Chief of Army Staff came, the most qualified person for Chief of Army Staff then was General Memelari, who is from his own side of the country. And he felt that if he is the Prime Minister and the Minister of Defense is from the North, it will not be nice for the Chief of Army Staff, the first indigenous Chief of Army Staff, to also come from the North. So he sacrificed Memelari and took Major General Agui Ironsi. Those kind of considerations are very rare today. And they were the things that make Nigeria very strong. And if you see the kind of respect that America accorded to Nigeria when the Prime Minister visited, the whole country was held to a standstill. And, you know, it is not what we are seeing now. That, unfortunately, from that time on, we seem to be moving backwards. But there are certain people who try to upgrade the standard, but like Umaru Yar'Adua, he did his best within his first short term. And he was going to transform the country, but health did not allow him. Also, Murtala Mohammed, who was killed within 6 months, the kind of achievements and the approach that he brought to governance, again, is very rare. Even Alhaji Shehu Shagari did his best to experiment with democracy. And he went to Anambra to pick Ekweme as his deputy. And the relationship between Shagari and Ekweme was excellent.
What about Obasanjo?
But when Obasanjo came in, unfortunately, initially it was very smooth sailing, but something happened, and he himself and his vice, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, fell out, and unfortunately they did not allow reconciliation.
So when you hear him talking, right? Well, before we get to that, as a president, when he was in office, because you were mentioning people, and I waited for you to mention his name.
Yeah, you know, actually, I must commend President Obasanjo for his capacity and his out of the box approach to get us debt relief.
Okay.
Because we would have collapsed by now. But it is the debt relief he brought to us.
Recently, he has been saying that the system of government that we're running right now is not right.
Well,
he's advocating for a different type of democracy, one that is Nigeria-centric. Many people have jumped on that to say, look, let us even practice parliamentary system. You know, some other people have said, look, let's make governance temporary.
I think our problem is not the system. It is the people inside government that matters. We were running parliamentary system in 1960 when we got independence, and it was running quite efficiently. But when the military came in, by the time they were leaving, finally, they decided that we should experiment with what we have now.
What we have now, do you agree with this Western-style democracy that we're practicing? Is this the way to grow our country?
No, I still think that if we got patriots into government, it doesn't matter the system we have, they will deliver. But when we have self-centered people, as we do have as most of our politicians, I'm one of them, if we are not ready to show greater patriotism, the nation is going to suffer. It is really the people, not the system. Whatever system we bring, if it is these same people that are going to people the system, we're going to have worse result that we have now.
2027 is just around the corner. People are having meetings everywhere. There's a group of men who have come together, called themselves the Alternative. They say they're not a political party, but like minds, you know, let's see if we can support someone that we think will move our country forward. We're hearing about alliances, left, right, and center. And then, of course, fears expressed by members of your party about President Tinubu's chances come 2027. What do you make of these, you know, these connections going on and the chances of the leader of your party come 2027?
You see, the problem with the country, with all the political parties, not just my own, is that we have skewed the party structure along individual persons rather than along principles and policies. For instance, it is only in Nigeria that the very day you become president, they give you GCFR automatically. These are things that people should earn. It should have been the other way around. After you have done the job very well, as a gratitude for what you have done, then they should give that to you. And this kind of approach, you may think this is elementary, but this is what we carry to all other things we do. And today, there's no distinction between the party and the government. Whereas during Shehu Shagari's time, he was president of Nigeria. Chief Adisa Akinloye was chairman of the party. They have a caucus, and at the caucus, the chairman of the party chairs the caucus, even though the president and vice president and other ministers are there. And the party policy is enunciated there for the people in government to go and as ambassadors of the party to implement. We have completely jettisoned some of these divisions. That's why today you find that there's no division. I mean, there's no distinction between the parliament, the executive, and even the judiciary. All of them are just mixed up. And we need to take time ourselves in our enlightened self-interest to bring these reforms about. And it must be one of us that will engender the reforms. And I want to implore President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, having spent a long time in politics and having waited for long to be president, to make a difference. And he can make a difference by restructuring. Not restructuring Nigeria that people are talking about, restructuring governance. Making sure, for instance, the distinction between the executive and the parliament, as well as the judiciary, the separation of powers is brought to bear. And then also making sure that the party is different from the government. And all these are possibilities that he can institute because of his long experience. And so that when he leaves, I mean, some of the people I mentioned have left legacies now. They are no longer alive. But people still talk about those legacies. So I think there's need for boldness for him to assume the position of a reformer and bring hope, as he said in this hope agenda, to really create lasting hope. And then eventually you'll be very surprised, because Nigeria, one thing about us is that we're very generous to those who are good to us. And he will be very, very surprised the way Nigerians will carry him whenever, after his office. He may become the father of the nation.
Do you think his reforms will kick in? The benefits of his reforms? Do you think they will kick in before he has the time to run for 2027?
I honestly think that it is dicey, the question you are asking, because unfortunately, as I said, certain things have not allowed the reform to work as expected. And he should own up. Some of his publicists are not helping matters, because there's certain areas they need to comment about, they don't. A lot of accusations are made against them, and they just keep quiet. And I think they should be more aggressive in giving the facts, so that people can be able to know that this is not true. Like, I mean, this Kaduna example of the El-Rufai case. If the guy had kept quiet, you know, people would have believed that this is true or this is not true. And so, but the way he came out, everybody's convinced that that story was not true. And there are a lot of things like that that are said against the office of the president, and you know, nobody tries to even defend them at all. And I think it's not good for the good of the presidency. So I think he should get his team. He has so many of them. Maybe because there are so many, that's why they are not effective. But
or it could be that thinking process, Mr. Salami, that you can't spend governance answering questions. you can't spend your whole time if you keep answering one accusation after the other. When is any job going to get done?
No, but there's a section that is their job, and they should be doing it.
Okay.
And the sensitivity of the public is so important that you cannot subordinate it to any other consideration, because the popularity of the president or the person of the president is it's not only for Nigeria, even internationally, is very, very important. All of us should be able to defend our president anywhere, and it is the information that we have that we can use. But when they remain silent, then I mean they're not doing their job. And I think the president should find people who do their job to do it, since they are not doing it for free. So I think that he should look into that area.
I want to thank you so much, Alhaji Isa Ozi Salami, for being with us on Political Paradigm, and good luck with all the work you have ahead of you.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be with you. Thanks.
And that's Political Paradigm this week. Please join the conversation on our website, channelstv.com. Leave your comments there, respectfully, of course, and join us as we continue to ask the accountability question until it is answered. I'm Kayla Magwa. See you next time.